Greetings to all viewers locked into another edition of Real Football Vibes, keeping it real on the beautiful game. And this week, our program will continue the review of Guyana's performance at this year's World Cup qualifying eliminators, Guyana being meekly booted out of the qualifiers, which has now reached the final round, and the 8 teams for that octagonal playoff has been decided. But so much is happening around the world and a beautiful game. Copa America, Euros continue, and here on the local scene, our Golden Jaguars continue preparations for Gold Cup uh, 2021, where they're set to meet Guatemala on the 3rd of July in Florida. So again, it gives me much pleasure to have you on board with us and to tune in and be reminded that you can be part of the program. You can interact by sending your questions, your suggestions on Real Football Vibes, coming to you via Facebook and YouTube Live. This morning, again, I'm blessed with another esteemed panel of persons who have been contributing to the development of the beautiful game here in Guyana, and more than likely being employees of the Guyana Football Federation. They will be giving the GFF's side of the story that we have been putting together for you from last week, whereby we are looking and reviewing Guyana's World Cup performance. This morning in studio, we have the development officer of the Guyana Football Federation, a former national player himself, Mr. Brian Joseph. Good morning and welcome on show. Coach Joseph, a pleasure having you on board.
Hey, good morning. Thank you for having me. You know, I'm happy that you've invited us to be here to share with the Guyanese public or the viewing public on what the Guyana Football Federation work towards the senior men national team and all the national programs, because obviously the senior men's national team is just a small part of the responsibility of the Football Federation. So I'm here to share with you guys some of the other pieces that falls directly as work of the Football Federation. So thanks again for having me this morning.
And thank you for those glowing opening remarks. Also in studio, well, not in studio, also joining us live, because this broadcast is coming to you via Yard Stream, and we're at different locations. I'm in Diamond. I couldn't tell you where Mr. Joseph is, but also joining us is the goalkeeping coach of the national program, one who has played also at the national youth level, and one who has been doing a more than commendable job. In fact, if I recall, he has distinguished himself as being the first person to establish a national goalkeeping academy. Welcome to Real Football Vibes, Ian De Vera.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. Hello to all the viewers also. I'm really happy that you could bring us here to share the GFF perspective on the development of football in Guyana.
Thank you very much for being. And I left the last person, particularly and especially for last to introduce, because today happens to be a very special day for him. And it makes this program for me even more special, as I say without even introducing, heartiest congratulations on 21 years of marriage to Wayne Dover, national football coach. Welcome, Coach Dover.
First, thank you very much, Mr. LaRose. Thanks for having us here as part of the GFF representation to share the GFF perspective. I must say thanks for the congratulations on my longevity in marriage. And I want to say good day to the many Golden Jaguar fans and the population by extension at home and across the globe. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Coaches are coaches within their rights and have distinguished themselves here in Guyana with a beautiful game. But like we said in the opening, we're going to kick it off and look back at the review of World Cup 22 performance. But before we go to the actual perspectives of the coaches, we look at a perspective from a coaching point of view from a new segment that we'll be having on Real Football Vibes. Let's have the coaches' corner to kick off things before we actually hear from the perspectives from the different coaches. Coach Coyote McKinnon. Well, perhaps the technical producers having problems there with that particular tape. Hopefully, it could be corrected before the program is ended, and we can share that with you. But let's go directly to Coach De Veer, the man who is charged with preparing the most pivotal, if not the last line of defense in the Guyana national team. Um, I don't think it's any secret that the nation is hurting over the performance in World Cup 2022. And I know the coaching staff would have feel disappointed as well. What was the mood like in the camp going into that last game and after the game? Because from what we would have seen, Coach De Veer, all heads were drooped. It seems as though no comforting was big enough to comfort these guys. Take us through that before that game, knowing that you're out going into this final game, and then after that, the kind of performance and result.
Okay. The mood in the camp, I think it was very good. Coming from a defeat in the first game, the staff was very motivated in knowing that there was a task ahead in getting to motivate the players. Of course, after defeat, it's always difficult for everyone, but you still have to. There's still a task ahead, and you still have to get everybody in the right mode, to be able to go forward. So the morning the camp was good. The guys were back out to training, and going hard. But of course, we know that we're in a transition mode, in a development mode where we have included many young players into the squad, because we're thinking about the future, of course. You know, this is something that it comes with a lot of criticism, because rebuilding process is something that is very tedious, and there is also the aspect where once you're rebuilding, then you already have people who are in the flow that you're coming up against, and it could be a very challenging time. And of course, everybody still want to win. Even the coaches that are involved in the rebuilding process and the players also still want to win. So it's challenging, of course, but everybody is on board with the task that is ahead. The players have worked very hard and try to bring themselves to a position where they are, and we have to be fair to them. We have to be fair to the youths. We have players that was in the first international. We have players in the second international, and some on the five international. And I think sometimes we be a bit hard on them when we try to compare them with players who have played for 4 and 5 years in out of Guyana in a professional environment. But of course, that is how the public would be at times, because the public just want to see wins. But the morning the camp was good. The guys are rooting and ready to go. So that basically is it. But there's a lot of positive that also came out from this process, because we have players that have came through the academy system from age 12 plus and 13 that is in the senior program now. And we would, the likes of Omari, we would see a lot of people thinking that, oh, this is such a good player, but this is a player that have come through the academy system. He actually came through the academy where I was the technical development officer for a few years on the East Coast. So that is we have a lot of positive, but I think we just need to be a bit patient, be a bit patient with the guy.
Based on what you're saying, the expectations of the nation were dashed, and you emphasizing on rebuilding. As a coach, as a man who has been around, do you agree with that approach going into World Cup qualifying, that you experiment with rebuilding? If so, yes, be the case. Do you think that the players who would have been serving the team over the last 2 years, who were dismissed from the squad, do you think the manner in which it was dealt with in letting them know they're no longer any part of the national program, do you think it was done professionally and in the right manner?
I think we're treading into some grounds where I am not I'm not privy to.
No, I'm
I'm not
asking you. I'm
no
asking
no
you as a coach.
yeah,
If
but
you are nothing to do with the federation, if you
no.
are preparing a World Cup team for a World Cup qualification, would you experiment with a rebuilding team at that stage? Would you deal with your players that was part of it in the manner it was dealt with? I'm not
But
asking you to give what the federation has done or
no,
what they
no, but
haven't
you
done.
see,
I'm
you
asking
asked
your
me
perspective.
more than one question, and
Yeah,
I was going to answer the question where you're talking about deal with in a manner. I don't know what manner you're talking about, because I'm not privy to that manner that you're heading to.
well,
That is
it
not
is
part
no
of my
secret. It was
huh?
on the social media how the matter was dealt with. It's no secret to me. I don't think that's a secret.
Okay,
That the
well,
player received a text message, not even a phone call, to say, well, what's happening, that doesn't matter if you're unaware of it. Do you think a text message is valid
but I
to
still
a
need to
player who would have served the national team
But I
and you
still need
get
to
away with it?
I still need to confirm what you're saying before I could respond to you, because I don't know of that. I think you should I think we should divert this question to Brian, who might be in a more
No, but coach,
managerial
I'm
period.
asking your perspective, not
No,
the FF
but if
perspective.
I don't
If
get
you
the
were in a
perspective of how
position,
it was done,
how would you have notified the player then? Okay, you're the national coach, you have a team, and you're going to not using two older players that you want. How would you have dealt with that?
but I don't think I should share my view on that at all.
Wow.
Because no, I don't think I should share my view on that. I've never been a national head coach. I work with goalkeepers. So,
I just simply ask you a hypothetical question. If you were in
no,
a position,
no, because
okay, fair
I've
enough.
learned
You
that
have no comment to make on that.
the media have to be very careful before thing is taken out of context, and then it gone sky high all over the
No,
place.
but
So
I contextualize it for you. I'm saying you're not speaking on behalf of the federation. I'm asking what you would do if you were a coach in that position. That's all. And you've
I'm
said you don't want to comment on that.
I'm
Fair
here
enough.
to share
Fair
GFF
enough.
perspective, not my
No, I
personal
respect. I
perspective.
respect that you say you don't want to comment on it. No problem. You
Yeah,
don't want us to be under.
you catch me
Um,
without this shirt.
I understand. I understand. You're all employees of the federation, so it's hard for you to make anything adverse comments, and that's what makes this program a little biased. Because you're employees of the federation, so obviously your views, you know,
No, but
like
here,
you don't want to think. But I can live with
I
that.
think it's intelligent
Joseph,
of me
I see
to
you're
share my
shaking
view
your
on
head. Maybe you
something.
have something to add. How disappointed are you, if you are, with Guyana's World Cup performance? Are you like the rest of the nation, dashed by expectations? Were you expecting anything extra special?
Yeah, definitely. And I don't think, I deserve to to be a member of the football fraternity if I wasn't disappointed by the performance of the senior men's national team. I'm very, very disappointed. And my disappointment comes from a different place, from where most people would have their disappointment. And I know a lot of people would have just looked at the game and saw what transpired over that 90-minute period. And then obviously they would have gone in with their expectations. So my position is slightly different. I'm part of the entire process when it comes to development and national teams within Guyana football. And I'm privy to a lot more information than most fans, right? So, I know about the effort. I know of all the work behind the scenes, the late hours, the 1 a.m. and the 2 a.m. conversations, trying to ensure that everything is in place so that our national team can go out there and deliver and focus and deliver a good result to the nation. And when I know of all these things and that result doesn't come, I'm obviously disappointed. All right. So yes, I'm fully disappointed with what has happened. And you know, the public, the general public again, does not have all the information.
Right.
And here we're trying to give some of that information. But a lot of work went into the team. I listened to the first program, and I think Dr. London, Keith London, who I played with also, would have mentioned something about preparation. And I want to say that over the last 2 years or so, the men's national team, as a matter of fact, all the national teams from this country have had the most extensive preparation of all national teams that have ever left this country, right? In terms of duration, in terms of the amount of sessions that were delivered, in terms of what was made available to the team, in terms of the investment in technology to be able to assist the coaching staff in analyzing and assessing and making scientific decisions, etc. I am aware of all these things that have been invested, and I know we're at the beginning of a cycle. Everything is a process. To get the balance perfect for international football is not an easy thing. The top nations in world football have failed at this, and we have failed here. But we continue to work, we continue to have the discussions, we continue to analyze as a group, as a wider group, to see what we can do to turn things around. All right.
You have mentioned about the efforts and preparations. Would you agree that preparations would be inadequate going into a tournament of this nature without even one practice game for the team, which obviously puts the players in a more match readiness?
It's wholly inadequate, and that's without a
Right.
doubt. It's wholly inadequate.
Right.
But you have to understand also that we were in the middle of a pandemic, and we are in the middle of a pandemic, and efforts were made to have international matches, warm-up games. And I think not I think, I know the president would have mentioned that in his subsequent press release,
Yeah.
that there were efforts. I was part and parcel of conversations, trying to get to Suriname to play, you know, just across the border, and the cost associated with just having an international friendly. And then the pandemic hit, and then that couldn't become a reality anymore. And I believe if you look around the Caribbean region and try to assess how many of the teams that participated in the qualifiers had a chance to have an international friendly prior to the qualifiers, you would find that that number is probably less than three.
Nah, I doubt that very much. I could call it with 3 matches off and that went on.
Great.
Thank you very much, Coach, for your input there. Coach Dover, um, what are some of the positives as a coach? And you've been around the Jaguars for quite a while. What are some of the positives you take out of the performance, despite it being a poor performance um, by the Golden Jaguars?
Okay, when I had the opportunity to look at the two games, I saw that the team from the from the previous game against Trinidad, I saw that a much more composed team, a team that was willing to play a possession game, a team that was willing to build up the attack from behind, a team that was willing to play through the midfield lines. And that in itself was a positive display for me if I to revisit the Trinidad game. And I was impressed with that. The other positive have to say I will take away is the fact that we saw many of the lads that been training with the team over the past couple of months. Every time they are introduced to the game, we saw some of the things that being worked on in training. We see a shift in intensity. We see a shift in mobility. We see a shift in creativity, and those are the positives I will take away from the game.
As a man of the trio who has held senior national coach position, I want to pose the same question to you.
Mm.
Are you the coach that would have adopted the set approach, rebuilding at a World Cup competition, or do you leave back your seasoned, experienced players out of this? And how much of a setback that could be experimenting at the World Cup level or a major competition? Do you
But
experiment at that level?
Well, I wouldn't call it experiment. I would say whatever is the plans of the GFF. Obviously, they are the employers, and they will have to direct the course of direction where they want the team to go, and the coach will have to work with that direction. And the fact that they are being statement of development and qualification, the coach now who has the right to compose the squad, make the composition of the squad as to who he wants for the purpose of the campaign. He would make his decision, and if based on the fact that the GFF has directed development and results, the coach has to make the blend of young players and players who he think that could make it out of the group. Unfortunately, it did not work for us in that way, but we have to continue, process of building, exposing, and including players who might be able to help the process as we go along at this point in time.
Okay, again, I'm asking you, if you were in charge,
Mm.
do you call any expert? Because you say you don't know if it was an experiment, but it's obvious
I
if
said
you're
I
going to
wouldn't
be
call it
using new players,
experiment.
you're experimenting because they're new to it. So I don't know what else could be determined as experiment. Would you have rebuild at a major tournament? That's a question to you, not what the federation or what has transpired. I'm asking your position as a coach. If you had
But
that authority, would you be
well, then,
calling on all your experience to participate, or do you carry a young team and experiment?
it will be depend on what I want as the coach. If I want to include young players who might be much more hungrier for success, right? Some people might say, we would know if this is players that would be given the debut or the time they would be deemed as inexperienced players, right? So that is where a lot of people would use terms as experimenting. But what I'm saying is that I, as the coach, will have to determine who I want to build my team with, and who I think that could give me the results that I'm looking for. However, if based on the composition of my squad, I don't get the results, then maybe we could simply say, well, we were unsuccessful in that effort.
I'm going to play. I don't know if all of you were privileged to listen back to this, the last program. So for that benefit, I will try and see if our operator could bring up that perspective that was given by a former national youth and senior player, and he gave his perspective as to what took place, what he sees from even that distance. And I would surely like to hear your comments on it. So we're going to see if we can join James Paul live with his perspective on Guyana's performance, and then we can respond to that.
Greetings from Atlanta, Georgia. Thanks, Brother Ras Abdallah, for giving me this wonderful platform on Real Football Vibes to express my views as a fan of our Golden Jaguars senior men's national football program. To answer your question, I am disappointed, but definitely not surprised by the recent string of defeats suffered by our lads on the big stage and under the bright lights of World Cup 2022 qualifiers. I'm reminded of a profound quote made by Herm Edwards, the New York Jets football coach, a few years ago. Herm said, "You play to win the game." Hello? Like our Golden Jags, Herm's New York Jets was on a losing streak. But he didn't shy away from the media. He faced them head on. He took ownership. He called a spade a spade. "Don't tell me about tomorrow," Herm said, visibly angry and frustrated. "I don't want to hear about tomorrow." Like Mr. Edwards, I don't want to hear about World Cup 2026 right now. Our fledgling national program with limited resources, a pandemic, and a new head coach doesn't have the luxury of putting all our eggs in that World Cup 2026 basket, okay? Our pre-pandemic national team wasn't broke, was it? Yet the new head coach tried to fix it. If I were a gambling man, I would bet that pre-pandemic squad under the same conditions would have delivered better results in 2021 than the current squad did. If the new head coach and the GFF are indeed playing the long game, that is, putting all of their eggs in that World Cup 2026 basket, then they should man up and let the world know. They should hold a press conference like Herm Edwards did, face the press, and tell the fans the truth. They should call all of the senior, older players of that successful pre-pandemic squad and tell them the truth. Maybe if they had done that and leveled with us, we would have lowered our expectations and been a little more patient. Maybe. After all, World Cup 2026 would be held in our backyard. It would be a dream come true for all Jaguar fans if our lads qualified to play on that big stage. Sadly, based on what I've seen so far, I'm not confident we are on track to even coming close to qualifying for 2026. If I'm right, then the national program is now officially broke. It's time to fix it. Now, not tomorrow. Let's get back to winning games. Thank you.
Very strong words from James Paul. Coach Joseph, you would like to take a strike at the first ball? Do you agree
Yeah,
with some
I
of
don't know
what
if you
he
want to
said?
call it.
Any of what he said?
I don't know if you want to call it a strike, but yeah, in his comments, he did, address a couple of things. However, he did share his opinion
Right.
on things. All right, because as part of the long term development goals of the Guyana Football Federation, 2026 is indeed a target that we want to work towards. But in working towards 2026, at no stage, at no time in a conversation amongst the technical team, with the head coach, did we ask the head coach to sacrifice this campaign. All right? And so the word that is out there is experiment. But I don't believe it's experiment. Um, but you have to understand that, and this is something that is not in public domain, or not in public communication, is that there were more players um, who reside outside of Guyana who should have been part of that group, who was invited to be part of the group for this round of qualifiers, but were unavailable for a number. I know of one player who was unavailable for personal reasons. I know of a player who couldn't get get a flight to come. I know about a player who, because he's transitioning from club to club, didn't want to jeopardize that situation. So, yes, uh, Coach Maximo, the head coach, utilized players that he thought could bring him a result, and also who was available to him. All right. And I know in world football, especially for men's national team coaches, the decisions taken by the national coach or the head coach is taken because he believes that this is the group that can give him a result, a positive result. And he know that the box stopped with him, right? So, you know, just going back to when we talk about Coach Maximo experimenting, I don't think it's an experiment. Coach Maximo be working with the local players. Um, and we've gone and looked at the sessions. We've been there. We've seen that, outside of the fact that the local players haven't had local competition to participate in, the effort and what we saw at the training was enough for us to say, you know what, these players can now be integrated. And Coach Dover would have mentioned, and I would have seen also, that when some of those players got integrated into the team and started playing, that we started seeing some good signs. All right. And, one of the critical things that I heard Coyote mention, and also speaking with the assistant coach, Charles Pollard, talk about the sort of impact the move to Trinidad and playing in the Trinidad Pro League had on the players that came back to represent in that golden era. But these players, these current players, don't have that situation anymore. It's not available to them anymore. So we have to give them time, just like how our golden generation had 5 years of pro football in Trinidad to get up to speed and then become the most talked about team in the region. Our local boys need to start somewhere. And this is a start. I've seen some positive signs. Omari Glasgow in his second full international, senior international, has already got a goal under his belt, right? And this is a player who, when the Guyana Football Federation started its academy program 4 years ago, he was one of the first inductees into that program and would have represented his nation through the player pathway at every international level, every every youth level coming right through, and would have been at under 15. Omari was good enough to be playing with the national under 17. At under 17, he was good enough to be playing with the national under 20. And he's a 17-year-old that is playing in the senior national team. All right. And
Very
so,
special talent.
yes. And so is Marcus Wilson. So is the right fullback Nikolai Andrews. So is
Sean
Deron
Nice.
Smith.
Adonis.
All of these, Sean Adonis. These are 5 or 6 players who were in the initial group that started the GFF National Training Academy 4 years ago that are now integrated into the senior men's national team. And these guys need time. They're going to be continuously be part of the process going forward. And I'm sure Coach Maximo would have reflected on his decisions for the last rung of matches, and he's going to make some new decisions going forward. But the one thing he knows is that he's already had a chance to assess whether these local players can play at this level or not.
Back to the perspective James Paul gave and be more specific with what I'd asked. Do you agree with him, like I agree with him, that the lack thereof structure that prepares us to meet that promised land, the World Cup finals? Well, I can't say I'm not in house or privy to know what's going on, what are the plans. But we're talking 2026. He's saying he's not confident Guyana can qualify as projected by the president or the program. Um, I am of the said opinion. Do you agree, or are you confident that with the project and the vision in mind, Guyana will be there 2026?
I can be definite that Guyana will be there. I know the structure exists. The structure is already in place for us to get there. I think the fact that the World Cup, the 2026 World Cup, is going to be expanded also means that we have a much better opportunity to be able to qualify
That
and
gives you
get
hope.
there. That gives me hope. The expanded format and the systems that are in place and are at work, including the training environment that it will now be made available, the professional environment. Um, I don't want to let the cat out the bag, but the possibility of Guyana having its first professional league in the very short term, those things I believe will be impactful in Guyana being ready to participate in a World Cup finals.
Well, that indeed is a positive note. In reality, let's hope it's brought to fruition, because the history of World Cup finalists will show that most countries, if not all, have some semblance of semi-professional or professional league going. We don't even have a league going here, but we're talking about qualifying. Coach Dover, um, anything that you picked up with Mr. James Paul's perspective on Guyana's performance that you would like to address or respond to?
He said so many things, and as Brian addressed most of them, means that I might just be repeating some of the things that Brian have said,
And we don't want that.
and we don't want that, right? But I'm happy that Coach Brian has underlined many of the points that I've made with regards to the coach and picking up the team, and whether it's an experiment and all these things, because the coach normally be in the training session. He see what he sees, and he determines how the team selected based on what they give in training, and that farm is starts as to whether we could get the results or not. So that is one thing we must always understand, whether we're fans or whoever, that the coach picks the team based on what he is getting from training session. And it don't always go with the fans selected squad or 11, because the fans, while they're integral and they're very important, because we always call on the fans to form the 12th man to help the team fight down to the victory, it is don't always be the way how they perceive it to be. It will end up because the coach works daily with the group and he determines based on performance in training session who adapt to whatever, whether it's the tactical approach or whether they're physically fit, or it all depends on what he determines based on the personnel he have going into a game from the preparation.
And ultimately, the result,
Well, of course,
he holds the responsibility
the results is always be
on his
something of
shoulders.
a mixture. Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't get it. And Coach Maximo has presided over 10 games thus far, and
23 months, well, most
he
of it,
was on the
COVID.
receiving end five, and he won four, and he draft one. So it's not a bad record thus far, given it's just a minimum amount of games he has played and the lack of football that is playing and the transition that we're going through is a mixture of things that should be taken into consideration that could give a little
Give him a
time
little more life
to grow.
strength.
Yeah.
So, how do you compare Fenwick? Less time, less results, and he's a Ghana. Although they would have finished even in front of Guyana,
But the thing is that Trinidad, just like us, have big expectation, but
right?
we're a little bit more realistic given the fact of what we have to work with. I don't think
Probably,
that
probably he was carrying added baggage too.
he had
That would have
baggages, but
expedited that.
the Trinidad fraternity, they would have probably place the objective of tapping the group, given they always think that they are the powerhouse in
Right,
the
right,
region,
right.
right?
Literally.
It's unfortunate they did not manage to come out that group just like us, right? We had our expectation, but we realistic with our expectation also, because not to say I'm hitting at the older guys in any way, because we all know experience counts when it matters sometimes. But I don't. We talking about World Cup qualifier. Do we honestly feel if we had include those guys, we would have qualified for the World Cup, or we probably might have come out of the group? We don't know. There's no guarantee. We can
Right. It's
only
all
see
speculation.
right.
But at the
So
same time, we can be
optimistic about.
comparing the success of that team before. Why do you dismantle a successful team? It just qualified from the Gold Cup. Why was the need to dismantle it? But we could go on and on with that. So
Yeah.
I think I'm satisfied with what you're saying, and I think the public understands exactly where we're at with that. Coach Devere, you earlier mentioned about the academy and the responsibility that you had in seeing the development of Omari Glasgow. Like you rightly said, I, like many persons who are close to football, understand and know the true realities going on behind those so-called academies. If they're functioning, how they're functioning, who are the persons imparting the knowledge, because those are the said persons would feedback to you. This thing is a joke. And I wouldn't even go as far as mentioning the pittance, as they say, they're being offered to do such. You agree with me that coaching is full time?
It
Coach
can be
Devere,
part time also.
part time.
It
Okay.
can be part time.
But I'm talking about a coach at a national level or an academy. It's full time, you would agree.
At the national level, mostly it's full time.
Right.
But at
So,
academy level, you can't say that at academy level
right,
it's
right.
supposed to be full time.
Well, how do you keep abreast of the progression? Some weeks in, some week out. How do go about keeping that developmental progression of the athlete
Okay,
by
well,
not being full time?
I think with respect to the full time and part time, there's a little mix up. Um, in Guyana, we would call it part time because we have another job. We would say that we coach him part time because they have
Okay,
another job,
okay, stick a pin.
right? So there's a little mix up there with
Okay,
respect to
stick a
part time,
pin, please.
right?
That's a
Um,
Guyana situation. I can relate to that. But
good.
what I'm saying, the job of a coach is full time. Even when you're over with your session with your players, you have to facilitate whatever problems they have.
Great.
Sometimes you have to reach the parents, the family to resolve a matter. Sometimes you have to go into the pocket to give them something to
A lot
make
of
them
time.
comfortable because you want the best out of them. So, in essence, the coach is a facilitator, meaning he facilitates whatever the situation is, which demands going over the specific time that you're training. And that is what I really mean by full
Yeah.
time.
So
That
that's
the
why
job is you could
that
get
is why I
phone calls
wanted to
all
clear it
hours to
up.
do things. Your commitment with the development of that athlete
Yeah.
is,
That's why I wanted
is
to clear it
important.
up
That's what I mean by that.
because the people listening, they would interpret it different. This is why we gotta be very specific when we saying part-time and full-time. Oh, but it's a full-time. Yeah, we know that the commitment is full-time, but we have a few people that have a regular job with opposed to they're doing the regular job and they're coaching to keep it going. Unlike me, who is football full-time, right? But even when you were part-time, it was a full-time job because I have that responsibility. Now with the academy, of recent, I've been seeing a lot of people attacking the academy system and so on. Um,
Does it exist?
I'm trying to compare it. I'm trying to compare it with Europe and the first world countries. Now, not because the academy is not a living and all these things like the first world country, it means that it's not a functioning body. Now, with respect to our academy, of course, it's not functioning now because of COVID. But with respect to the academy, I was the technical development officer on the East Coast with the East Coast Academy. Now, you have people who you have youths who are part of the academy. Now they have coaches, they have a technical development officer, and they have a technical development coach. They have two coaches who are working with these academy full time. Now there is a program that is sent. There's a program that is sent to all the development officers, right? On a monthly basis. Once you're ready to move forward, once the technical director check and make sure that everybody is okay with what has been done at that level, then we move forward, right? And a program is sent to every one of the academy. Now, this is a program that is done on a weekly basis with the players. The coaches are responsible for giving out the lessons. So they're responsible for keeping track of the players, keeping track of their progress. All of this information is sent via email to the the development officer, which is Mr. Joseph, who reports to the technical director. Now, this is done on a weekly basis. The progress of all these athletes is done on a weekly basis. This is something
Even
that
during this
I
COVID time.
attest, pardon?
Even during the COVID time, it was being done.
No, it wasn't done during COVID.
Okay.
It
So
wasn't
there's
done
been a
during
halt on
COVID.
the academy for some time.
No, it wasn't done during COVID. You couldn't.
No, I'm asking if there's been a halt on the
Yeah, of
academy
course, there's a
for
halt in
some time
academy.
now. For
But
some time
even
now.
Ian,
but during
Ian, let me
COVID,
address that
no, now
here.
don't say sometime COVID. But during COVID, they had sessions every Saturday, Zoom sessions every Saturday with the coaches, the technical director, and the technical officer doing session plans and all these things, development program through COVID, preparing everybody, keeping them at a level to be able to deal with and be up to speed when the academy gets permission
Resume.
to restart.
Okay. So the coaches have been busy correlating information and putting together, but the players, nothing is there for them. Understood. Mr. Joseph, I see you were wanting to get in there at some point with some valid point as always.
She freeze.
Oh. seems to be having some technical difficulties there with Mr. Joseph. Probably in Iceland, he's frozen, according to Coach Dovo. But Coach Devere, what I was wanting to get at is but I think again, and I've said it before, COVID will be held responsible for a number of the setbacks. But
all over the
how
world.
many of these academies you can say offhand are they? And how would you rate the effectiveness of them, let's say on a scale of 1 to 10?
Well, I would rate the effectiveness of the academy based on the number of youths that are presently now in the that came through the system, that is now in the senior setup, that is in the under 20 setup, that is in the under 17 setup. I'd rate it based on that, because if I'm correct, coming through the academy system from the U13 in the under 20 team that went to Nicaragua last year. I think it was 9 or 10 players that started from the U13 level was in the under 20 team that played in Nicaragua last year.
Coach, we have a question here online from one of the viewers, and he is questioning the lack there of structure or competition for youths. How could the academy be that effective? There's no schools competition, there's no youth program. You like to address that?
I could.
Well, Ian?
Yeah.
Yeah, anyone could take it, no problem.
Go ahead, Ian.
Yeah. For me, when it comes to school competition, school competition is normally run by the ministries, and from me growing up, school competition is normally run by ministries, from private entities, and these things. I don't remember the Football Federation being responsible for running.
No, I don't think an accusation is being leveled at the federation for this. We
Yeah.
know that.
So, good.
He's saying, Mr. Harmon is asking, with no competitions for schools or youth, how could the academy be that effective? I think that was the question.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yeah, Mr.
Yeah,
Joseph, you're certainly back on track. Could you just hold? Let me get the response from Mr. Devere, then we can have your view.
No,
Yes,
I think he came in at the right time.
Yes, Coach Devere. So the question was not addressed to the federation or accusing the federation for not providing schools competition. That is no secret. That falls under the umbrella of the Ministry of Education. What Mr. Harmon, Coach Harmon, was asking is, with no schools competition or youth competition, how do you rate this academy as being effective, where the competitiveness will be a good measuring stick to see who's ready, who could, progress?
Well,
Let
before
me take that, Ian. I want to take it for a specific reason, because this falls directly under my area of work within the Football Federation. And there's some general information out there that speaks specifically to what is required to develop a athlete, all right, regardless of what sport it is. And part of that is 10,000 hours of deliberate practice that is required. All right. The Football Federation cannot provide that 10,000 hours to any player. We cannot provide it. It's impossible. It requires a collaboration of club football, school football, grassroots football, every level of football. That's what is required. What we're able to do from a federation perspective in terms of the academy is to contribute to every level of football 2 hours per week on the weekend, 2 hours per week towards that process, where we give deliberate practice. It is delivered by quality coaches, and that is supposed to work along with deliberate practice from your club with your club coach, deliberate practice from your school with your school coach, as well as deliberate practice over competitions, etc. So the reality is that while the football federation is the governing body, it needs all these individual parts to be able to develop this elite athlete. With
I
regards to school
agree.
competition, we've had um, lots of conversations with the Ministry of Education, and now FIFA and CONCACAF is part of the process in trying to ensure that we have national school competition. All right, we know what Digicel was able to do, and if there is another corporate partner out there like Digicel that is willing to partner for us to have a national tournament, we open and willing to it. We have one corporate entity in Namilco who is not doing school football but is doing youth football. Namilco provides the financing for us to be able to do a nationwide under 17 tournament in all of the registered member associations. They provide the funding. That funding is then transferred to the MAs for them to execute that. All right. The PD alumni group did that. I think just before the pandemic, we had 1 year of the PD alumni group doing that for under 15. So it is clear
Great.
that outside of partnership with corporate entities, etc., this cannot be the total responsibility of the football federation per se. It has
I
to be
agree with
the
you. I
responsibility of the
agree with you.
football family.
I agree with you 1,000%. And I think I lamented that fact last week based on the fact that I would have experienced Trinidad and Jamaica's World Cup success. I would have been domiciled in those countries for periods of time. And what I recognize first and foremost, it was a total national involvement, not effort, involvement. But I want to take a break from this discussion and pay some tributes to persons like yourselves. I call them unsung heroes, persons who have put in the work, laid the foundation. I've been hearing of the good works of Jan de Veer with the East Coast Academy, but I know I've been hearing about Omari Glasgow long before an academy was set up from the BB. So I want to share some thoughts on Kester Garnett, the man who, together with Bill Wilson, another BV resident, and this is a proud moment for Benefawaktim, because what I've learned also, young Omari Glasgow has genes in him of the two rival factions of football in BV. That's the goal seekers up front and the back down side Transbal. So he's a rounded BV man. They have a diamond to polish, and I think the community efforts have really supported him well. And so we're going to hear from Kester Garnett, the man who would have identified and seen this talent at a very early age.
With reference to Omari Glasgow, support is what is required in order for him to able to achieve the desire of his dreams to play football professionally. Our structure in Guyana is not so designed for me as I see it. Holistically, from the grassroots level right through, we hardly finding where players from a youth level go on to make the senior team, especially in a short space of time as Omari did. Omari got great support from his parents, the community, the team members, and we ought to give him the support that he needs, especially at this point in time. Our structure should be designed in such a way that we be able to sustain generally the youths in football to achieve the desire to play football representing the country or even professionally at another level. It was great when I learned that Omari made the national senior team at such a tender age. Um, for quite some time, I don't know if we have seen that in our system, but thanks to those, the GFF and the likes, they have their input to do as well as the governing body for football in Guyana. Our community extends heartfelt gratitude to the people that support Omari from junior level onto his budding senior career. And we want to express our gratitude to some people who are currently involved in the aspect of helping Omari to achieve: Mr. Albert Capel, Kathleen Jason, Benita Frank, his parents, Miss Sandrine Harris, his aunt. And for all those who I don't remember at this point in time, we'd like to say thank you and continue doing the good work for the progression of Omari Glasgow.
Yes, thank you there, Coach Garnett. I tried earnestly to get a comment from Coach Wilson, and I'm sure it will be forthcoming. He's that kind of a responsible man and a coach who, for whatever strange reason, he's not involved in Guyana's football development. A school teacher by profession, a retired teacher, ideal football knowledgeable to be handling youth academies, but for some strange reason, his service is not being utilized. The outing tryouts for young Omari from Mr. Albert Kappel, who I know personally as well. And kudos to Mr. Kappel as he continues to provide opportunities. Kester Kelman was another he was involved in providing for him and continuing to do great works. A former teacher of the Campbellville Community High School and a teacher in Atlanta as well. And again, salutations and congratulations are in order. And from all his reports, Omari did extremely well. And these 7 universities, these are rival universities in the NCAA one. They have combined together to hold tryouts in 4 different areas in America. And when the final tryout is completed, then they will narrow down who they want, and then we'll know which college Omari is going to. But there have been very positive reports. And like the coach was saying, and I want to extend it, there's the old African proverb, it takes a village to raise a child. I think the whole nation should join in ensuring that this youngster does not fall prey to distractions like other youngsters. And I like the discipline he is displaying so far and not made out to be a prima donna. Time is certainly catching up with us here. I want to touch on the national team. Mr. Stan Harmon made a very vital point that the United States of America, where this game will be played against Guatemala on the 3rd, has made it clear that no one coming in from the UK within a 14-day period will be admitted into the US. And that certainly gives food for thought for the Guyana Football Federation with so many players coming out of Europe. I don't know if anyone is in a position to say what that situation is. The last thing I knew, well, obviously, CONCACAF will come into play. Something is being worked out. Any update on that? Anybody with regards to the national selection coming up for Guatemala and that situation? Wow. Well, apparently no one.
I don't have any facts, but I know obviously CONCACAF will jump in because Guyana would not be the only country that would be affected by
Right.
that. So I know CONCACAF is definitely going to jump in there and try to get that situation resolved. But
But of
football
course,
is
the
what it
players
is.
move now.
If we
Sorry.
are unable, if we are unable, and this is a big if, I don't know for sure. If we are unable to use the English
Overseas.
based players, then it means that we will have to use our local based players because whether we like it or not, Guyana will participate in a match,
Right. True.
right? So, and again, this is why I believe the approach of GFF to have a full squad of local players in continuous training for months upon months is such an important step in moving our football forward. It is such an important step because I can tell you, if we can't have those players, I can tell you that we can feel a team that will be prepared to go out there and fight and represent the Golden Arrow.
To experiment again, to be precise.
So if I could come in to say
Yeah,
that
sure,
for
Mr.
sure
Boko.
that all the players who will be heading to the United States are given special condition for to enter the for this tournament. So there won't be any hiccups in terms of where they're coming from and how widespread is the pandemic. There is a special condition for them to enter the United States of America. And
Okay, great,
that
great
was
news.
facilitated through CONCACAF
That's
and
great
FIFA.
news. And that is top secret and safe news, or that's out there?
At least the MAs them aware of that. So I guess when it's
Okay, it's out
necessary,
there.
the GFF would make those disclosure
Okay.
from an official standpoint. But I'm privy to that because I a little bit closer to the team. While Brian is very close and Ian is close, it has been communicated to me
Great,
that
great. Well, coaches, I want to touch on something that really touched me yesterday. And I'm positively certain it touched the entire football fraternity world. Euros, Denmark versus Belgium, 10 minutes into the game, and the referee brings the game to a halt. This is to pay tribute to Christian Eriksen, who we all recall suffered a cardiac arrest last Saturday when Denmark played their opening game against Finland. And in a glowing tribute yesterday, the fans, the referees, the players, they stopped the game and they applauded for 1 minute. I've never seen anything like that. I was touched. Your thoughts?
I haven't saw the game or that moment, so I cannot pronounce on anything.
Yeah, yeah. Right, right. I can understand. But for me, it was a touching moment
But
in football because
indeed.
a life was saved. And that to me was the defining moment for all the football playing right now.
Yeah,
To see how beautiful a game could be at times, even
yeah.
though the rivalry out there could be a dark fight. Because up to that stage, Denmark I wonder if Belgium was actually allowing to give them that lead. They led at 1-0 at that stage. But when the likes of Hazard and De Bruyne came into the second half and Lukaku stepped it up, it was a different story. The game ended 2-1. But that game certainly would go down in my memory as one of the games that will stand out forever. Coach Joseph, you happen to witness that?
Yeah, I did, and those things are indeed very touching. Um, what hit me harder is the Ericsson incident in itself, because again of Ericsson just coming off a entire season of Italian football, a player who was supposedly fit, a
Right.
European country with all the doctors and everybody and all the checks that are being done, and yet this player collapsed on the pitch, and that has really opened my eyes because had that been a CFU game where our coaching staff is not as large, the facilities available in Europe are not the ones available here, then that could have been something totally different altogether.
Indeed. And wow, time has caught up with us. So a minute each, perhaps, in final thoughts, words, and as we look forward to Guatemala on the 23rd. Guatemala would have had some 10 friendlies leading up to this. So they are well prepared. I must warn and advise the expectations of the Golden Jaguar fans. Coach Xavier, open the kickoff.
Well, we've learned that with all that was said, that the football is played on the day on the pitch, and we have seen many big moments in football, just as you saw yesterday.
right?
There were many big moments in football, and we as part of the staff, that is the only thing that we could put forward to the players. We need to continue to motivate them at all times, and always try to get the best out of them. So I would leave you with that.
Coach Dover?
Well, in my closing remarks, I would say sports is made for surprise and upset, and
True, true.
they always gonna be moments that will always live in our memories, right? And we'll definitely go there to compete against the Guatemalans and give our best and be very optimistic because it's not a case that because the name Guatemala, they automatically win. As Coach Ian said, the field is flat, the ball is wrong, 11 versus 11. And on the day, maybe who wanted more or who converted the chances created and prevented anything from converting more than likely come out of the winner, despite who might have the lion's share of possession or create the most chances. We see these kind of things every day. So we would want to come out of that game, leaving our name written well in history.
And the man to close it off, seal it off, Coach Joseph.
No, so my thoughts are, our national team, the Golden Jaguars, we understand that we can only control the things that we can control. We can't control anything else. So when we take the pitch, we take responsibility for performance. We go out there and we execute based on what we've been working on, and we allow the result to take care of itself. All right, there's nothing else we can do. We don't know the result until the game is finished. So we have to allow that process to happen. We have to show some belief in the staff and the players that they will go out and give up their best. And hopefully on that day, the best is good enough to guarantee a victory for Guyana's football.
Well, coaches, I must express my heartfelt gratitude to you all sharing your time and your opinions, and looking forward to having you on Real Football Vibes, where we keep it real on a beautiful game. But it would be remiss of me not to give you an update what's going on in the Euros. Croatia and Czech Republic 1-1. Sweden had the better of Slovakia this morning 1-0. And the big one that comes up at 3, the oldest international football rivalry, England against Scotland, reminding you that England's worst ever defeat at home was led by a British Guyanese born Andrew Watson in 1881. 6-1 drubbing it was, and we continue to pay and salute that forerunner in Guyana's football, Andrew Watson. The Copa America continues today. Argentina and Uruguay, Chile and Bolivia. The first game at 5, and Argentina game is after. And really, a feast of football for you football lovers and Real Football Vibes, keeping it real on the beautiful game. We will be again here next Friday with another episode of Real Football Vibes, keeping it real on the beautiful game. And again, thanking you, coaches, thanking Mr. Rashley Fraser, our technical man, and you, the viewers, Stan Harmon, coach, for your input, and inviting you again to join us another time. And reminding you too, and sharing with you, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's not what you see, it's how you look at it. It's not how life is, it's how you live the life. Passionately friendly and of integrity. So long, everybody.
Thank you very much for having us on.
Thank you.